Hey guys, BuildZoid here, and so today we're going to be doing a bit of a very random video about some RAM. I kind of did that on purpose. Anyway, yeah, see, the thing is, Crucial for some reason sent me a pair of these kits. Well, I should probably be holding it this way. Yeah, a pair of these. 3600 CL16, 2x32 gigabytes. Dual rank Micron Rev B memory sticks, and since I have two of them, I figured, hey, let's see how 128 gigs of RAM overclocks. It does actually overclock. In fact, it boots XMP and you can overclock it, so that's pretty surprising. Admittedly, I am using the MSI Z490 Unify for this because so far with my Z490 motherboards, it's been the most, as always, MSI boards are just kind of the most flexible when it comes to supporting, any memory configuration. I've run these DIMMs on a different board and actually, in just a dual rank configuration instead of what we have here. Because this right here, this is quad rank, because each of those DIMMs is dual rank. You have two dual rank DIMMs on a memory channel. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, so that's quad rank. The CPU's memory controller is very upset about this. But XMP actually boots. I didn't stress test the XMP. I'm kind of hoping it would be stable, but I can't be certain. Because once you get up to this much memory, I don't know. And I'm also not interested to find out, because finding out will probably take 12 hours or something. But the thing is, yeah, so 128 gigs on the Z490 Unify, because this was the motherboard. The thing is, I didn't try any other boards. I just kind of went well, this is probably going to work best on the Unify. And it works okay on the Unify, I guess. So there's also a 10900K in there. So let's take a look at the actual overclock that I was able to achieve. So here you can see I've run Geekbench. Now the CPU is not running fully enabled because my 10900K really isn't that great. And if I ran it with, the memory would actually be bottlenecked by the CPU if I wasn't running, well, 5 gigahertz uncore isn't necessary, but if I'm at 4.5, it actually significantly lowers the Geekbench score. So we're at 5 gigahertz uncore, so that Geekbench isn't being limited by the CPU so much. But the CPU is also running 5.3 gigahertz core and no hyper-threading and a bit too much voltage for day-to-day usage. But yeah, that's it's just not that good a 10900K, so there's not really much I can do about that. Also, it's not fully stable. It's just kind of well, it finishes Geekbench. It doesn't seem to crash very quickly. But anyway, so the memory, I actually got it all the way up to 4,000. For comparison, if you're only running these, if you're not running 128 gigs with these DIMMs with the 10900K, so a 64 gig configuration instead, on an ITX motherboard, I was doing 4400. So basically, to run quad rank, you're losing some 400 megahertz right there. The funny thing is, the performance is actually decent, right? 8,750 points in Geekbench 3 is actually, that's not bad. It's not the highest score I've seen. I think the highest one was 8780, which is just a little bit higher. But yeah, that's actually a pretty decent score considering that, especially considering that we're at 4,000, DDR4 4000 and CL18. Right, so it's we're not at that impressive timings or anything, and it's still scoring pretty damn well. Also, I have to say, I'm kind of surprised that the motherboard trained all the, the RTLs aren't a disaster. So I'm kind of surprised by that, because quad rank, you would be expecting these to be just a horrible mess. The tertiaries tightened up a little bit. TRFC really doesn't go below 570 as far as I can tell. I was messing around with 560, but it wasn't posting. I was also trying to do some tighter tertiaries at the same time, so might have been a little bit of a conflict. I'm not entirely certain that it was the TRFC, but it certainly didn't seem to be helping. Anyway, so yeah, this is this is kind of ridiculous. Let's run some IDA. Now, the thing is, I don't particularly like IDA because it's a bit it's a bit insensitive. And actually, even Geekbench isn't as sensitive as something like LinPack, but at 5 I can't run LinPack on this right now. The CPU, like the way I have the cooling system set up on the CPU is suboptimal. Because I really was only expecting to mess around with some memory overclocking, and then I realized, wait a minute, I don't really want to wait for 12 hours for it to, like, stress test, so we're not doing that. And so it's just like, yeah. Anyway, so in IDO we're getting 61 gigabytes per second read, 62 gigabytes write. That's actually a bit low. Normally it's closer to around 63, but there's a bit of variance with all of these tests. And then copy is at 60.7, which I've seen a 61 gig copy with these settings before. So yeah, but you know, I there's some variance to the benchmark right there. So yeah, this is actually decently quick, considering what it is, because I was really expecting this to have a hard time even booting 3600, which yeah, like it works. That's like, it's not even like, it's still not the fastest, like it's not super fast by any means, but it's not horribly slow. And it's not like I'm having to push a ton of voltage here, because the thing is, like, it's entirely, like, I think it might be motherboard limited to some extent, but it's certainly heavily memory controller limited, as in I can't even lower the cast latency without it failing to post. So I don't really, like, I don't have to run crazy high voltages for these settings because it doesn't scale. Like, you can shove 1.7 volts into these DIMMs, it doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't clock any higher, the cast latency doesn't get any lower, none of the timings improve because the CPU is, like, the CPU's memory controller is just completely maxed out. So yeah, to get the 5.3 gigahertz finish in Geekbench, I'm at 1.48 on the core, 1.4 system agent. So basically as high as I would be willing to daily on the system agent, and 1.35 on the IO, which there's still a little bit of headroom, but it really, like, I tried 1.4 IO, it doesn't do anything. I also tried all the way up to 1.6 system agent to see if maybe that would get 4133 to work. No, it doesn't. So it's very much kind of just like hard wall at 4000, and I don't know how to get it any higher than this. And yeah, so here's all the settings. Right, I mean, you already saw those in the ASRock timing configurator utility, but basically most of these tertiaries I have to leave them on auto. Well, I don't have to leave them on auto. I tried lowering them and then it would stop posting, and so I just went back to the auto settings. Because this isn't actually as, like, this isn't too bad in terms of, like, default settings. The only ones I tightened up are, like, the 12s right here and the 32 and the 26. The board really likes to set these two timings quite loose. So the, what is it, WRRDSG and WRRDDG. So those normally default much, much higher, and that, well, that lowers the Geekbench score a bit. Like, the funny thing is the timings don't really affect the score too much, because with quad rank, you really don't lose that much performance for any timing, really. So, like, that's the crazy thing. So I'm actually going to drop this back down to the XMP right now. Which is why I just saved that profile. Though I'm not sure why I'm saving that profile. I'll probably never run that memory, like, this configuration ever again. It's really impractical as far as I'm concerned. So the XMP settings on this kit are that, and actually we should set that to auto, but it'll just go to 2T anyway. And right now it's at 1.5 volts on the memory, but default memory voltage is 1.35. And I tried higher voltages, it just doesn't scale. The memory controller can't take it. I had 4000 CL16 working for a little bit, but when I say working for a little bit, it was like it wouldn't really consistently train. The RTLs and IOLs were a bit of a mess. Yeah, it was really unreliable is one way to put it. So yeah, that wasn't great. So we're just going to put it back down. And the board's going to probably train some of the timings a bit whack, so we're probably going to have to fix that. Because one of the things that you run into with these really high-density memory configurations is the JADEC standard for, like, TRFC actually calls for a really, really high TRFC timing. So I think at 3600 we're already at like 1000 TRFC, which is not great for performance and totally unnecessary with these DIMMs because you can lower the TRF. Like at 4000 I was running 570, so at 3600 you should probably be able to run around 500 TRFC. Yeah, so you can see it just goes all the way to 999, which is just like, yeah, that's really not necessary. So 520. And the other thing it does is, oh, these are actually just fine. Okay, so it only does it at higher frequencies. So this is what these should look like. Like at higher frequencies with, I think, a different kit, what would end up happening is like WRRD SG and WRRD DG would go all the way up to like 45 and 35, and that costs you quite a bit of performance. So previously with my overclock, it was doing, what was it, like 8,750 in Geekbench, and now I'm like, it should do like mid 7,000s, which is kind of insane for an XMP. And if you're wondering why I didn't just actually enable the XMP profile, it's because I don't want to go through all of the CPU settings again. I don't really feel like clearing the CMOS just to enable XMP. Right, capture card. And, oh, okay, yeah, so I was right. It isn't stable. I might have pushed the TRFC a little bit low. Yeah, I think I lowered it a bit too much. Like, I really hope that's the only issue. Oh. Okay. The mouse is freaking out. Also, somebody's probably wondering why I'm not doing this with a 3950X, and the reason is I wanted to see where, like, how far we can actually push the DIMMs, and I didn't really want to be limited by the infinity fabric of the 3950X. Like, ideally, what I'd like to test these with would be, like, the 4750G, the APU, because that has a really strong memory controller. At the same time, it kind of doesn't have enough cores for something like this. Like, it doesn't make sense to have 128 gigs of RAM on an APU, on an 8-core APU. Like, honestly, it just doesn't make sense to have 128 gigs on a dual-channel platform, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's the thing, is, like, even at XMP, basically XMP settings, like, this is spitting out 7,700 points. Which is kind of like, dual rank is whack, yo. Like, that's the thing. Though you, like, if you don't fix the TRFC, the score is actually significantly lower. And if we run IDA, now the thing is, IDA should actually drop, wait, what is up with that read speed? Oh no, it's 55 gigs. On my screen, it looked like 35 gigs. So I was like, wait a minute, what happened? Nope, it's just the weird scaling I have in OBS. So, yeah, so the latency is really, I mean, even when I had it at 4000 CL18, the latency wasn't great, but like now we're starting to approach Ryzen territory with a 10 to 900K. I'm kind of wondering, well, this might actually tighten up quite well at 3600, because there's voltage headroom, and this does scale with voltage in terms of the timings, but, and actually at 3600, like, however, the thing is it just really doesn't make sense to, like, try force the memory latency. Well, we can, let's try that. Like, I'm actually wondering at this point. Because it might be possible to run like 3600 CL13 or something with reasonable-ish voltages. So we're going to try that. The thing is, we're not going to do like a full overclocking session on these, because I already did that when I was going for the 4000 CL18. So it's like, I'm not going to be, like, it's not going to be a new experience for me. These are very unlikely to tighten. Like the 18-18-38, that's really not likely to change at all. So we're just going to leave that alone. Actually, we're just going to max this out. Actually, that should go to 10, 4, 4. Actually, no, not those. We'll leave that one alone for now. Actually, probably for the rest of the video, because I don't want to deal with that one. This board's weird about TCWL. So, actually, you know what? We should probably start with 14 first. I'm going to stick to the 12s, because I'm not entirely certain that the board isn't going to complain if I lower them too much. Nope. What am I doing? Actually, you know what? We're going to go 26 on that. And one other timing that I should have set. Yeah, TXP to 4. That helps with the latency as well. And we're just going to bump up the memory voltage back to 1.5, which should be really unnecessary for just CL14, but we'll see. I wonder if it'll do CL12 if I give it enough voltage. It should, but like I don't think there's a practical reason to do that. And to hell with it, let's try it. I don't have a plan for this video, so... Because the thing is, it's just like, I'm not going to stress test this. It takes way too long. Also, I don't actually care that much about how this would work out if you actually did worry about stability. So it's kind of like, yeah, I need to figure out something easy and, like, quick to do with these. And it's just like, well, I guess we're going to do a little bit more... messing around on these. So let's try TCWL 12. Hopefully that works. The board's really, like, the other thing is this board is really good about recovering from bad memory settings, so I shouldn't really have to worry about, like, not saving memory profiles or not saving BIOS profiles every step of the way. Moment of truth, and oh, it worked. Great. So yeah, there's 128 gigs doing CL12 there at 3600. And the capture card is, of course, having... Come on. Yay! I wonder what that did for Geekbench. I don't expect very much. Like, the thing is, we are... Like, with quad rank, the timings matter a lot less than they normally do. Like, on single rank, timings are super important. On dual rank, they're still pretty important, but not as important. And then once you get to quad rank, they kind of start not doing much. So it'll be interesting to... Like, I actually have no idea what this is going to do. It might break 8,000? Barely? Also, the glitchiness isn't the system being unstable, that's just my capture card being, well, terrible. Yeah, so it just barely breaks 8,000, so we went up 300 points after I literally tightened up every single timing. And it's, like, it doesn't make a difference. It just doesn't matter once you have this many ranks. and that's the thing is, like, theoretically, quad rank would be really good if you could just clock it really high, even if the timings were terrible. The main problem is you can't clock quad rank high because you have 4 memory ranks, and the memory controller is very, very upset about that. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing is, like, honestly, I'm surprised that it even went to, what was it? 4,000 at all. Like, I was really expecting 3,600 to be problematic. But, yeah, you can really see it in IDA. It doesn't do anything to performance at this point. Because we're just getting... So, previously, we were getting, like, 55 gigs read, 55 write, 55, copy. And now we're getting, like, 56. We picked up, like, a gig of bandwidth, which is just like, well, that... After, like... If I did the same timing adjustment on single rank, it would do a hell of a lot more. I'm not actually going to demonstrate a single rank configuration right now because I do have plans for a different video, just address, like, different video that's better planned out, that's going to cover that better. Yeah, so quad rank right there. Not even worth overclocking, really hard to work with. Takes forever to stress test. You should probably just run this at XMP. Though we did get the latency to not suck at this point. So now it's 43 instead of 50. Which is still kind of high, but it's a lot better than 50. Not that I think it actually does much for actual benchmarks. Oh, now it's doing 42. Yeah, so IDA's not exactly the most consistent memory test out there. Hooray for quad rank, I guess. I'm really not sure what else to do with these DIMMs. I do want to mess around with some, like, 64 gig setups on, like, ITX motherboards, because that actually seems kind of sensible, and it doesn't take any... Like, it still takes forever to stress test 64 gigs, but it's not, like, 2 times forever, right? Like, that's the main issue. It's just, like... So, 64 gigs of RAM takes a long time. 128 takes 2 times a long time. And so it's just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And at the same time, like, I'm impressed that this doesn't completely suck. Like, the fact that you can do almost 9,000 points on a quad rank, like, on 128 gigs of memory is, like, I'm surprised. On a dual channel platform. If you were on quad channel, then, you wouldn't be dealing with the whole quad rank problem, and it should work actually a lot better. The main issue is like, I don't think anybody cares about X299, and I really don't like overclocking Threadripper. So, it's just like, yeah, we're doing this on Z490. Well, I could have done this on X570, but on X570, we'd just be stuck at 3,800 and chasing minimum cast latency, which would probably be like it would... X570, we would be looking at this, except at 3,800 CL14, with, like, 19 or 18 for the RCD, TRCD and TRP. Well, TRP would actually tighten up because it's decoupled from TRCD on X570. So fun fact, on Intel platforms, TRCD and TRP have to be the same value. You can't set them to different values. One of them overrides the other, and I can't, like, and I think it depends on which motherboard you're using as to which one is the one getting used. But anyway, yeah, 128 gigs of RAM. It can overclock, assuming that you have a bunch of Micron Rev B, and then also it'll heavily depend on your motherboard and your BIOS and your CPU, and then I don't know if you want to spend the next, like, 24 hours stress testing it. So totally not worth it in my opinion. But as a sort of, like, can it overclock? Yes, it can. And it's not even that bad. So there, that's kind of it for the video. Because again, I didn't really have a plan here. It was just kind of like, Crucial sent these kits in. I didn't know what to do with them. Here's something. So I guess thank you, Crucial, for sending over all this memory. And thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. You can support me directly through that. Then there's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, stickers, posters, the usual YouTuber merch. Yeah, there's a link to that down in the description below as well. And both of those help out immensely with running the channel. So if you check them out, that would be much appreciated. And yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.